Hello everybody, Jerry Execute Fitness, and I'm very excited for this video. Into this video you're gonna learn about carbs, and specifically I'm excited for this because as you see on this page as well, there is the carbs rule, and you already saw some of the information you have to implement. But I want to make some clarity on the fact that obviously carbohydrates are not the bad food, or carbohydrates are not bad for you, as the market seems to be advertising from years. So if you haven't already gotten the understanding, you should have gotten, or you would have gotten the understanding by now, that you need to put back carbs and calories into your daily or weekly count as you get to consume it. So of course this goes back to a few weeks, and if you haven't done it already, this is really the time where you implement this rule. So you want to put back carbs as you get your activity to go higher if you haven't already implemented. How do you make the carb really work on your advantage? This is the title of the video, and how you're going to be understanding. On top of, obviously, you see different sources of carbohydrates. Some of them are healthy, more healthy than other. Some of them is purely sugar. Some of them is a combination of sugar and fat. And that's, of course, that's what creates, first of all, the indication of how good you're going to be performing. And secondly, obviously, how many calories you're going to introduce in your body, making you your cosmetic goal to get to you faster or slower. So how do you implement this? Obviously, you need to start by following, first of all, on top the rule, but as you see the rule, as you follow the rule, you want to have an understanding of what the sources are. So let's start by the sources. As you see here, there is sources of starches, and there is sources of fruit, and there is sources of vegetable, and there is sources of tubers and legumes, right? All these families of carbohydrates are different. Some of them, they introduce an amount of calorie, the other ones introduce a less amount of calories, some of them introduce more water, some of them not. And realistically speaking, you must include starches on your diet just to make sure that obviously you keep your level of leptin and thyroid high. And it's very important, but also you want to be having an understanding of what family of carbohydrates works best for you. And of course, the level of the family of the carbohydrate that works better for you is as the level of you can absorb it, and as you get to obviously store carbohydrates. So the way we have to start is by you making a little bit of an investigation on your body and pretty much figure out, understanding how many obviously carb you can process, but specifically what it creates absorption problems, or getting the intestine to growl a lot, or making noise, or whatever, like you feel like as soon as you eat them you go to the restroom. So you having an understanding of that, and that's really I cannot stress this enough. We don't have a magic wand. I or anybody don't know what's going to work for you. So you need to have an understanding of a trial and error carbohydrates, and pretty much figure out which one are going to be better absorbed, because if you get absorb them better, you want to keep into your diet. As you find that, for example, milk or the legumes creates gases, it's not the legumes create gases, it's obviously all chemical processes trying to get some of the toxins out of your body that creates gases. So if that make you obviously have these kind of problems, you want to avoid it or eliminate it, right? And that's exactly what as you go to the mirror, sometimes you see your let's say you eat in legumes, you go to the mirror, you create gases, and then you go to the mirror and you see yourself very puffy, retaining water. It's not the carb that is wrong, it's simply what the carbs creates in your body, that particular carb, so you want to be avoiding that. So then this is what the misunderstanding of the carb itself, because they do a lot of research on that, and they see that some food creates more water retention than other, and then they say carb is bad. It's not the carb that is bad, it's the carb that is bad for that particular individual in that particular situation. And yes, I did say situation, because you might be processing good carbohydrates on the summer, and you might not be able to process during the winter. So realistically speaking, you must really find out what sources work for you. And here, like I said, is the microbiome. This is what I just said. The bacteria that are created or are in the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria that are in your body or that are introduced from the diets will create several components of chemical that I'm not really going to go into detail right now, nor there is the purpose of the video, but make you understand that you need to really feel, and but the biofeedback from your body is always going to be king, okay? Don't pay attention to GI, to glycemic index or glycemic load. It's been advertised for years to be one of the good thing or bad thing about carbohydrates. This gives you an idea of what those are. But again, GI can change really based on so many things. If you cook or not cook, food can change if you eat a certain type of the stress that you having, or the absorption, or the speed that you're eating the fruit. It can change. The amount that you're introducing, it will create a different glycemic load. So this really is not important. So really, if there is a take-home message I want you to get from this, do not pay attention to GI unless you have diabetes. Of course, that would be a different conversation, and for that I really wish that you contact me personally. Know where to start, how and when you're going to be implementing the carb rule, or specifically when you're going to be implementing a carb rule in a way that you're going to have to put more carbohydrate than others. So I want you to at least get to 25 or 20, between 20 to maybe maximum 25, but better 20-22%, and you can really implement the carb rule, and you can really load on carbohydrates, as you should, right? As you get lower, you're always going to be consuming more carbohydrates, you're going to be more sensitive to carbohydrates, and you're going to be having great results from carbohydrates. As you go 25, 30, 35, you want to be limiting your carbohydrates. And it doesn't mean take it off or take it away, you're going to be limiting the carbohydrates. So the way that we start is very simple. Know how to shift your macro first, right? So I don't want you to go on a high carb cycling or anything like that. I just want you to have an understanding still about the calories that are more important, but when to shift the carbohydrates. So when you're going to shift the carbohydrates for the high, you automatically going to keep your fat and protein specifically low. So this on the right shows you that the protein level pretty much stay the same. You either gonna get the fat to be higher and the carb lower, or the opposite way around to keep the same amount of calorie. Now, realistically speaking, as I see here, I didn't find a better chart. I probably should have made one myself, but realistically speaking, the protein level should be much higher, and despite on the other two levels. So the protein should be at least 30%. As we keep the fat and the carbohydrates, if you keep high the carb, you're gonna keep the protein, the fat low, and vice versa. As you are 25% or less, you wanna slowly increment 2 grams to 4 grams type body weight. So it cannot go up to 200 to 350 grams of carbs, depending on your activity level and depending on your obviously your degree. You don't want to go directly and let's say you're 25%, you don't want to put 4 grams type kilograms. You want to go there slowly. You want to start by 2, and then by 3, and then possibly by 4. Looking at your mirror, looking at how much water you're retaining. Carbohydrates will retain 2 grams of water per 1 gram of carbs, meaning like you will retain a lot of water with carbohydrates. That's what I want you to get there slowly, and that's what I want you to get there in a timely manner. As you are more than 25%, I will limit the intake of carbohydrate from 0.5 to 1 gram per body weight. So that would probably mean anywhere from 50 to 60 grams to 100 grams a day. You do need a minimum because you will work out a lot in this program, and is obviously you need minimum for physiology functions, for brain function, for all this metabolic function that are very important. Also, you do not want to keep carbs for too low for so many days. If you're doing cycling or any type of cycle of carbohydrates, you want to at least every 3 to 4 days make a day that you put more carbohydrates, while in the opposite way, if you do in many high days, you want to keep a low day every 2, 3 or 4 days at least, just so your body doesn't get accustomed to. You should be shifting 70% of the carbohydrates around the workout between the 2 hour or 3 hour before and 3 hour after. You don't want to exceed, of course, 70% or 250 grams for that amount of time. So if unless you're not an athlete, I would not exceed 250 grams of carbohydrates between the 6 hours intra-workout before and after. Of course, unless, like I said, if you're an athlete. But chances are for this particular program, it doesn't apply to you. So I want you just to focus on shifting most of the carbohydrates around the workout. It doesn't mean that you cannot eat it in the morning or in the night. There is this idea that carbohydrates in the night are not good. Totally BS. You can eat it as you want, and as you have problems sleeping, carbohydrates will help you sleep better. So if you wish to hit your carb in the night, you can. Just don't eat the whole amount there. Like I said, alternate days from high carb to low carb. So you see here the calories. Usually the days that you eat more carbs, it will also be a day that you eat more calories. Now this is a little bit disproportional, but specifically if you eat at 2000 and then 1500, 1800 calorie days, you want to be keeping possibly the carbohydrates on the day that you're working out and you're eating more. There is also specifically more into cosmetic or bodybuilding, there is also the idea that you can actually recharge or reload the day after, so you would be keeping the workout day low, and then the day after, in this case, let's say Thursday you work out in the gym, you can probably do a higher day on Friday and higher day in carbohydrates. So there is tons of studies that shows positive results or positive outcomes from doing both. So you can either keep it on the workout day higher, you can recharge it or reload it or refeed on the day after while you worked out the day before with a lower intake. So it's really up to, again, trial and error. It's up to you, it's up to whatever the individual asks, and it's up to how you see yourself getting results from. So you can try both, 1 week one way, 1 week on the other way, and you would be seeing a different results and different feedback. Based on that, you can always get back at me and ask, of course. How do you regulate? I mean, I don't want you to take this slide wrong, nor I want you to go against any doctor order. How do you regulate? The easiest way that we regulate whether or not obviously the results come from a carb intake or not, is tracking results. I don't want you to go by weight. The weight will shift a lot, specifically for water retention. So as you get more carbohydrates, I want you to, first of all, understanding if you're getting more fat or not, or less fat, or more weight or less weight, is really about how can you know that it's from carbohydrates. So first of all, you get the type measurements. That's the easy way to do it. You just get your measurements, whether or not your weight or scale says that you're heavier. You want to have an understanding if your measurements are going up or are going down. So as you see that, you will have an understanding. Also, you want to look at the mirror. Like I said, tons of time, this will not lie to you. As you see yourself more puffy, as the intake changes for every single individual, you will need to understand what is the top mark of carbohydrates that you can absorb. There is not a rule, there is individual. Again, every person, somebody might be okay processing 150 grams, somebody might be okay processing 200 grams, some people, athlete, might be okay processing 400 grams. So you need to understand it. There are ways that you can do it or make sure that the carb is the problem, yes. If you have one of the glucose measure, that thing on the top right that measures the glucose, you can do so. I wouldn't buy one or I wouldn't get one necessarily, but if you can understand what is the level of obviously diabetes, and which is around 7 obviously millimole, and you see there 5. If you have 5 or something around that range, you probably process carbohydrates better, and probably carbohydrates being absorbed in your body is not a problem. If you have 6.5 to 7 or 7.5, you're getting like closer to diabetes or on the diabetes range, then is when obviously you would be seeing a doctor and when you have to start paying attention about carbohydrates. Also on the bottom, very, very important, a bioelectrical impedance, which is something that you can probably find on some doctor offices or some dietitians. If you can get one of those done, is it on your benefit? Because obviously that gives you an understanding whether or not you keep your water into the cell or outside of the cells. And as muscle is really hydrated by 70-80%, you want to be having an understanding if carbohydrates help you put on muscle into your particular situation, or there is an innate or silent inflammation into your body that's not allowing you to make muscle. In that case, just you loading on carbohydrates will make you getting obviously fatter, and you wouldn't feed your muscle as are supposed to be fed. Yeah, lastly, like I said, mirror. As you see here, and I did choose this for a particular reason, the person on the right is, both of them obviously are in good shape, both of them they look good. Realistically speaking, the person on the left is processing carbohydrates a little less good than the person on the right. As you see, a leaner person or somebody that's getting ready for a contest, so that is really like very, very solid shape, as you see there. This person you wouldn't think, but this person probably consumes anywhere between 250 to 400 grams of carb in a day. And this is not a rule, this is just a fact. As you get closer, and the metabolism is very functioning, it's very high, and she didn't get there overnight. She probably, like I said, she started from 2 to 3 to 4 grams per kilogram, but you do need to understand that if you're gonna get there, you really need to push heavy weights. You need to have an understanding how your mirror reacts, and of course, as you see the aspect or the look on the left, it's a little bit more puffy. It's a little bit retaining water. In that case, you do need to have an understanding, first of all, how to obviously process carbohydrates, how to get there as you get used to it, and how to go from 1 grams a day to 2 grams a day, implementing cardio in a certain way that you can build better, how do you say? You can process better carbohydrates, and also, of course, implementing the gym. That is the best way to direct the carbohydrates into your muscle and not into your fat. So for that, of course, you do need to get a little bit of experience, and that's why you never end up learning, nor you should be feeling like after a particular challenge you got to the summit of the mountain, right? It's really about learning, continuous learning, and processing and learning how your body reacts better.